Welcome to the show. I know you guys are liking those giveaways, and this time it's going to be the best one yet. Are you ready for this giveaway? I want to invite you to join me for dinner at one of my favorite restaurants. That's right, dinner with the great Eldersky. You heard me right. Fine dining with yours truly. We can talk about anything you want, and I'll answer all your questions. Well, mostly all of your questions. It'll be a great time for sure. So hurry up and go to winlarry.com to sign up. I'm going to be announcing the winner live on February 22nd, so make sure to stay tuned. And last but not least, a big thank you to everybody who joined the giveaway for this mug. You better use it every single time you watch my show. Now let's get into today's show, shall we? In Monterey Park, an area just outside of LA, experienced one of the worst mass shootings and killings in California history.
A quiet Los Angeles suburb still reeling after a Lunar New Year celebration turned into a scene of terror. Exclusive video obtained by NBC showing the harrowing struggle for survival between the gunman and a heroic man who may have prevented even more deaths by wrestling away his weapon from a second ballroom. Police say 72-year-old Hu Can Tran first entered the Star Ballroom Dance Studio in Monterey Park after 10 on Saturday night and opened fire.
42 rounds were fired by the suspect at that location.
10 people were killed that night, all in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Just 20 minutes after fleeing the first scene, police say the gunman arrived at a second ballroom in Alhambra, where 26-year-old Brandon Say was manning the front desk of the dance hall. Say managed to gain control of his weapon, and the attacker fled. Multiple law enforcement sources familiar with the investigation tell NBC News that while an exact motive remains elusive, the evidence so far points to a personal motive.
The suspect, as you saw, was disarmed by citizens.
The weapon that was recovered from the Alhambra location, in which, remember, the suspect went to the Alhambra location after he conducted the shooting, and he was disarmed by two community members who I consider to be heroes because they saved lives. This could have been much worse. The weapon that we recovered at that second scene, I'm describing as a magazine-fed semi-automatic assault pistol. Not an assault rifle, but an assault pistol that had an extended large capacity magazine attached to it. That's the pistol that was recovered at the location in Alhambra.
This is one of the citizens who helped disarm the killer.
This is when he started prepping the weapon, and something came over me. I realized I needed to get the weapon away from him. I needed to take this weapon, disarm him, or else everybody would have died. When I got the courage, I lunged at him with both my hands, grabbed the weapon, and we had a struggle. We struggled into the lobby, trying to get this gun away from each other. He was hitting me across the face, bashing the back of my head. I was trying to use my elbows to separate the gun away from him, creating some distance. Finally, at one point, I was able to pull the gun away from him, shove him aside, create some distance, point the gun at him, intimidate him, shout at him and say, "Get the hell out of here. I'll shoot. Get away. Go." And at this point, I thought he would run away, but he was just standing there contemplating whether to fight or to run away. I really thought I would have to shoot him if he came at me. This is when he turned around and walked out the door, jogged back to his van. I immediately called police with the gun still in my hand.
And the mayor of Los Angeles got a bit ahead of her skis when she put out this statement, quote, "As investigators determine whether these murders were motivated by Asian hate, we continue to stand united against all attempts to divide us," end of quote. Asian hate? And about this tragedy, reporter Andy No wrote, "Democrats focused on the mass shooting in Monterey Park, California, hoping that it was racially motivated, while ignoring the violent attempted uprising last night in Atlanta, where Antifa and far-left extremists came equipped with explosives to overthrow the city's police." Now, just days later in California, another mass shooting and killing. this time in an area near San Francisco called Half Moon Bay.
And CNN's Camila Bernal for the very latest. Camila, I mean, it's hard to believe we're talking about another shooting in California, this time in Half Moon Bay. What can you tell us?
So we know that it is one shooter who went to multiple locations. This happened at around 2:22 local time this afternoon. And we were told that the suspect went to the first location and shot 5 people, 4 of them killed at that location, 1 of them critically injured. Then he went to another location about a mile apart and he killed another 3 people. Now, we have been told that this was a mushroom farm. Authorities are calling it a nursery. In general, it is an agricultural area, and police had not made an arrest until about 4:30 in the afternoon. That's when this suspect was spotted at the sheriff's substation. Now, we know that it was a plainclothes officer who saw this suspect, who saw the car that they were looking for. And I was speaking to my colleague, Josh Campbell, who pointed out this was not the massive SWAT team operation that we saw in Southern California. This was an officer who you see there wearing a tie and taking this man down and arresting him. Josh Campbell also pointing out that they did not seek cover. They were not hiding behind cars. Instead, they thought that this was an arrest that was safe enough to make at the moment. We know that he was taken into custody. They recovered a semi-automatic handgun after this arrest. We know he is cooperating with authorities. The DA's team is interviewing that suspect at the moment, but we know he acted alone. Authorities saying there is no threat to the community, yet they have not given us a motive. They are working on it, but so far they say they do not know why this happened. Laura.
Do you know anything about him in particular? We don't have the motive yet. We have his age, there's the picture. Anything we know about him in particular?
So we know he is a Half Moon Bay resident, and authorities believe that he was an employee at one of these nurseries. We also know, according to authorities, that they believe that the people he killed were also employees in this area. Again, 67-year-old resident of Half Moon Bay. He is in custody. Authorities are speaking to him at the moment, so hopefully we get more clarity on why he did this.
Camila, thank you so much. I want to bring in now Assemblymember Mark Berman of California's 23rd District. Assemblyman, I mean, such a tragedy, and it's unbelievable to think about the pacing of such tragedies.
California has the strictest gun laws in America, yet it did not prevent these 2 horrific tragedies, as acknowledged by the LA County Sheriff.
Gun violence needs to stop. There's too much of it. We're all standing here tonight because an individual took a weapon and did the damage that we've talked about without repeating it. I think all of us need to take some ownership there. I think we really need to go back and look at what we do. California has some of the strictest gun laws in the country, but yet look what we just had today. So let's look at across our nation, see what works and what doesn't. But I could tell you this, the status quo is not working. So we need to re-examine what we're doing and what may work better. And I hope that this tragedy doesn't just go on a long list of many others that we don't even talk about until the next one comes up.
So, what's next? I'll tell you what's next. The repeal of the Second Amendment.
I mean, the Second Amendment is becoming a suicide package.
But there's many people in this country that support the Second Amendment and are lawful gun owners.
Yeah, I have great respect. I have no ideological opposition to someone reasonably and responsibly owning firearms and getting background checks and being trained.
Meanwhile, for a little perspective, ABC Chicago reports at least 33 people have been shot, 8 fatally, in weekend shootings across Chicago. You see, when someone of Asian extraction shoots up a dance hall full of others of Asian extraction, it's an anti-Asian hate crime. When blacks shoot up other blacks, it's just another weekend in Chicago. So, and as to deaths per capita, Baltimore and St. Louis are 3 times more deadly than Chicago. And how does Hollywood distort the use and frequency of guns for self-defense? What's that? The great Eldersky has in his baby brown libertarian fingers a pair of my slippers? I do indeed. But if you don't, you are missing out. That's why we put that number on the screen. Call that number or go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER, and order your own My Slippers. They come in different colors and in different styles. And this, of course, is the item that started it all. The MyPillow. Different sizes. You've never slept on anything this wonderful. Call the number on your screen or go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER. And this, of course, is the 6-pack towel set. Towels that work, meaning they absorb water, which is kind of the whole point. Now, Mike found out there are a lot of towels, look good, fluffy, smell good, look bright on the shelves. You take them home, they don't work, they don't absorb the water. To get towels that work, that look good, that feel great, go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER, or call the number on your screen. Finally, what's this? The Giza Dream bedsheet? That's right. That's right. And mine is in white because I'm the black face of white supremacy, but you can order them in different colors and, of course, in different sizes. All you have to do is go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER, or call the number on that screen, promo code ELDER, MyPillow.com. Joining me to discuss all of this, Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay, and Hollywood and Guns, Professor John Lott, founder of the Crime Prevention Research Center, crimeprevention.org. John, California, as you well know, the most stringent gun laws in America, yet 2 horrific mass shootings, mass killings within a matter of days of each other.
Right. I mean, obviously, I think Newsom's gotten the wrong lesson from this. I think the sheriff is on point to a large extent. Look at the gun laws that they already have. It's very unusual for anybody to get a concealed carry permit. In the county that Half Moon Bay is in, there are 24 concealed carry permits that were issued active as of last year. That's like thousandths of 1% of the population. It's like they have one permit for every 24,000 adults in the county there. In Los Angeles County, it's pretty bad too. They have about 1,034 active permits as of last year. When you consider the 8 million adults or so that they have there in the county, you're talking about one person with a permit for over every 7,000 people. The likelihood that one of these attackers is going to run into somebody who's going to be able to defend themselves is incredibly low compared to the rest of the country. There are 43 so-called right to carry states. In those states, 1 in 9 people have a concealed carry permit. It's the reason why you see when you look at active shooting events across the country, you'll see about 34% of the active shooting attacks from 2014 to 2021 were actually stopped by citizens with permits. The more recent data, which is more complete, shows for 2021, 49% of active shooting cases were stopped. And if you look at places where people were allowed to have guns, exclude gun-free zones, because we're talking about law-abiding citizens, and if it's against the law for them to carry a gun in certain places, you can't really expect them to do that. It's about 60% of active shooting cases are stopped by law-abiding citizens that have concealed carry permits. So, in California, they basically make the state a gun-free zone. And it's not surprising that people aren't able to go and stop or deter these attacks from occurring. But, Newsom isn't learning any of those lessons from it.
John, the sheriff referred to the weapon in the hands of the Monterey Park shooter as being an assault pistol. What was he talking about?
I think it's just a term that they kind of make up over time. In this case, we're talking about a semi-automatic handgun. About over 85% of the handguns in the United States are semi-automatic. This particular, gun works like any other semi-automatic gun. One pull the trigger, one bullet comes out, it reloads itself. One pull the trigger, one bullet comes out. And, you can call it an assault pistol if you want, but it's, even the Associated Press this last year said terms like assault weapon weapons of war, other things that we see politicians use very frequently, are pretty much nonsensical terms. When Biden wants to talk about AR-15s as weapons of war, and the Associated Press said, look, there's no military around the world that goes and uses this semi-automatic type gun like this. So, I mean, it's, you want to go and ban certain guns based on how they look or whatever, it's not a lot of sense to that, because there are other guns that are functionally identical, that fire the same bullets with the same rapidity. And, you're not going to accomplish anything by banning guns based on how they look. And my concern is that if you go and you ban all semi-automatic guns, let's say you ban all semi-automatic rifles, what's the alternative? A manually loaded gun? People have to understand that civilians benefit from semi-automatic guns. If you have to fire more than one shot because you're facing multiple attackers, or because you fire and miss, or because you fire and wound but don't incapacitate the attacker, you may not have the luxury of time to manually put another bullet in the chamber yourself if you're dealing with manually loaded guns. Semi-automatic guns make it much easier for people to go and protect themselves. And that's the reason why the vast majority of guns owned in the United States are semi-automatic guns.
John, in this particular case, he had what was called, I guess, an extended magazine. They're already illegal. And so it didn't stop him from doing it.
Look, all semi-automatic guns can take an extended magazine. All right. So, the notion, just because they can say, well, a gun can take a an extended magazine, that doesn't differentiate between any of the 85 or 87% of the guns that are in the United States that are semi-automatic guns. So, and the thing is, I don't think people seem to understand. It's true, California, some other states ban extended magazines, large capacity magazines. But magazines are incredibly simple to make. I've seen people put together a magazine literally from scratch in 2 minutes. It's basically a box with a spring in it. It's one of the simplest parts of the gun to go and do. And so you can go and ban them, but the only people that you're really going to stop from owning them are law-abiding, good citizens that are out there. If you're talking about concealed carry, the vast majority of people who are carrying a concealed handgun, the only magazine that they'll have is the magazine that's in their gun. And so, you go and you put limits on the size of the magazine, you're just limiting what the good people are going to have. Somebody who goes and is going to an attack a certain place, they'll carry extra magazines with them, whether they're 10-round magazines or 15-round magazines or 30-round magazines or whatever. So all you've done by having those types of limits is make it so that the law-abiding good citizens who are legally carrying their guns are going to be put at a disadvantage in terms of the number of rounds they have relative to the criminals.
Finally, John, let's talk about the frequency with which these things happen. You have researched this and have said over the last several decades, if you have a consistent definition of a mass shooting, they have been pretty steady, about the same number over all these years. Given the recent ones, does that change your opinion?
No, it doesn't change my opinion. I mean, I don't know. We can look at 1 month or something like that. This may be a higher month than normal. It's not. There have been months in the past where we've had higher death counts than we've had during this month so far. But, I guess the big thing to me is just to compare the United States to other countries. People have to take into account that we have over 330 million people in this country, the third most populous country in the world. People will compare us to Europe, but you'll have countries like Norway and Finland, which are like 5 million people each. So we're more than 60 times or 66 times more people in the United States than they have in their countries. Even a country like Germany has like 80 million people in it. So we're more than 4 times. You have to, nobody would compare the total number of murders in California to Rhode Island, for example. They would go and look at the murder rate, the per capita murder rate. And for some reason, when the media goes and makes comparisons, or when politicians make comparisons across countries, when you're talking about mass public shootings, they refuse to go and do that, because there are many countries in Europe And then when you get outside of Europe, a lot of countries outside of that, which have much, much higher rates per capita of deaths from mass public shootings than we have here in the United States.
John Lott, Crime Prevention Research Center, crimeresearch.org. As always, John, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. When we come back, another twist in the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. You remember the Russia-Trump collusion investigation, right? Well, one of the FBI agents investigating it turns out was in bed with the Russians. Now, hit that like button because I know you like the show. Hit subscribe and scroll down at the bottom and get on our mailing list to make sure you don't miss any of our vids. Because believe it or not, from time to time, apparently YouTube has issues with some of our videos. To make sure you don't miss anything, you got to get on our mailing list. And you see that big round donate button? Hit that, throw a little something in the tip jar. Make sure that you still can get our hard-hitting programming. And remember, Larry with Epoch.com, Larry with EPOCH.com.